In the previous video, we started with the process of modeling an open book in Blender, and we even managed to create the basic mesh for a 3D model. And during this process of modeling, we understood about the basic use of subdivision, the solidify modifier, the curve modifier, array modifier, and a lot of different tools that we used to overcome the problems in the modeling process. And today in this video, we'll continue with the modeling part as we'll be working on some details and some other problems related to the topology part and other concepts. Now the first thing that we'll be doing will be to apply the modifiers that we used in the part 1 of this section while creating the basic model, and the correct way to apply these modifiers is always from the top to bottom. So first of all, we'll be applying the solidify modifier. So click here and select apply, and by doing this, the solidify modifier will basically disappear from this list, meaning that it is now permanently applied to our 3D model and we can no more make the changes that we could previously do in any of the parameters of the solidify modifier. So until you actually apply the modifier, you're free to make any changes in any of the parameters or the properties, but once you apply it, it becomes permanent and you then cannot make any changes in that modifier. After this, the next modifier on the list from top to bottom is the subdivision. But before applying it, do take a note that higher the number of levels of subdivision, higher will be the resolution of the 3D model and more will be the time that it takes to render. Also, in the subdivision, you have the levels viewport and the render, which means that this first value is basically only for the 3D viewport and not the final rendered version. However, the render value is basically for the final output that we render when we are completely done with the 3D model. So it depends upon you if you want to keep both the values same or different, or the viewport value higher. You can choose that depending upon your needs. For now, I'll be keeping the levels viewport value to 3 and will also keep the render value to 3. Then I'll apply this modifier. Similarly, let's also apply the curve modifier, then the array modifier, and at last we have the mirror modifier, but I won't be applying this one right now because we might want to make changes on any one side of the model, and in that particular case, having the mirror modifier will allow the changes to be made on the other side automatically. And now the next thing that we'll do will be to go to the front view. Let's zoom in, and I'll be making this bottom part of the pages over here where they are meeting, or basically the area where we have the book binding. Then I'll select this lower part. Let's also turn on the X-ray mode and select it again, and now I'll be making this lower part completely flat. So to make this flat, press S, then Z and 0 on the numpad and press enter to confirm. By using this technique, we were able to make this lower part completely flat. However, if I turn off the X-ray mode, then we notice that this lower part of the book, or basically the pages where we'll have the book binding, is looking very weird. Now this is because we have added a large number of faces over here, because when we scale down the selected vertices, they basically collapsed at this bottom part and now they're all lying over here, which is basically something that we do not need. So to fix this thing, let's go to the top view, then select all these vertices on the bottom, keep the X-ray mode enabled and press X to delete, select delete faces. And with this, we'll be no longer having the clutter of vertices on this bottom part. Now there are only those vertices that were actually the part of the pages present over here. And now moving ahead, the next thing that we'll do is to create a cover page for this book. So for this, I'll first deselect everything. Then with my cursor over here, press the L key to select all the linked vertices, or basically this entire page. And now let's create a duplicate of this page by pressing Shift D. Let's move it slightly away from the page like this. And after this step, the next thing that we'll do will be to separate this mesh from the rest of the pages. So press P, and in the separate menu, click on selection. Now return back to the object mode, select the cover page, go to the edit mode, press A to select all, and let's slightly scale it up by pressing S, and also let's move it away in the X axis. After this, we'll be completing this bottom part of the cover where we basically have the binding, and for this purpose, I'll be adding a loop cut here at the bottom so that we can then use the faces that are generated to extrude them and connect to the other end. So press Ctrl R, let's add a loop cut over here, then left click, and after this, let's change the angle, press 3 for the face select mode, select this entire loop of faces at the bottom, then go to the front view, press E to extrude them in the X axis, and also turn on the clipping option in the mirror modifier, then move this in the X axis again, and with this, we now have the cover page of the book almost ready. Right now, it looks very simple and plain, but to give it a cool design, you can go to the edit mode, press A to select all the faces, then open the extrude menu by pressing Alt E and select extrude individual faces. Now if I move my cursor away, then here you get a very cool design for the cover page. You can adjust the amount of extrusion depending upon the size of your cover page and other things, and after doing this we'll be having almost the final structure of the 3D model of an open book. Now one more thing before moving forward will be to understand of creating this open book, because you might be thinking that overall in this section there was not much talk about the topology part. We only focused on creating some pages and a simple cover page for this book model. But see, there are two things for this answer. The first thing is that if you zoom into the pages that we have modeled here, you will notice that all of them are having a completely perfect topology. Even though we did not have to manually do a lot to create this kind of topology, especially around the regions where we have the thickness of the pages, but still we got the perfect results. And this is where the modifiers come into play, which is also the second thing to understand here. If you remember, while beginning the section number 4, I told you that our main focus will be on learning about the application of different modifiers, the way they need to be arranged to get perfect results, and their effect on the topology. And while modeling this open book, and more specifically the pages, we used a number of different modifiers like the curve modifier, the solidify modifier, subdivision, and other things. And previously we also understood that the order in which these modifiers are applied also changes the way your object looks and its topology. And after all this, it's now the time to apply some materials on this book. So first of all, let's go to the render preview mode. Now to get some light in the scene, let's turn off the scene lights and the scene world. And after this, I'll first select the book cover, then go to the material properties, create a new material. Then for the base color, I'll change this to red, and if you want, you can choose any color of your choice in this color wheel. I've also reduced the brightness to give the cover page a slightly darker appearance. Then I'll select the pages, let's create a new material, and then for the base color, you can either keep this as the default white, or else you can even give it a slightly yellowish appearance like this and increase the brightness. And with this, we now arrive to the end of the second part of the section number 3. Till now we have completed the modeling of the pages of this open book and the cover page, and now in the next video we'll be completing this scene by modeling a pair of spectacles and placing them on the open book. And during that process, we'll not get deep into topology or the geometry part, but our main focus will only be on finishing this scene. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.